Well, never mind all that stuff, because COVID also taught Sunny Hostin how to get her groceries delivered. Yeah, I know, amazing. But that means it's time for...
Living your life and you're feeling low. You don't know what is true. You don't know what's true. So you quick flip through the channels to watch Sunny on The View. Oh my God, the stuff she says is dumb. Where the hell they get this woman from? She's a host who's always crass and lame, with lots of nonsense to proclaim.
Sunny Hostin just went into full meltdown mode, and no, it wasn't Mercury in retrograde. Greg Gutfeld called her out so sharply that even the teleprompter started glitching. Hypocrisy was exposed, the drama shot off the charts, and tissues were flying everywhere. If you've ever wanted to see someone unravel faster than a knockoff wig in a wind tunnel, this was the moment, and you won't believe what she said once the cameras stopped rolling.
Make fun of The View a lot, but that's only because they keep talking. Those hens are always clucking. They get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, and then I get to say stupid stuff for an hour every day, except on purpose. But every now and then, one of those dingbats inadvertently says something that reveals modern liberal thought so perfectly it deserves further study. You know, like a weird serpent that washed up on the beach and you want to poke it with a stick.
Sunny Hostin finally cracked, and not the usual kind of cracking that happens daily on The View when someone asks a question more complicated than what's your favorite color. This was a complete high-definition 4K Ultra HD televised breakdown, and it came courtesy of Greg Gutfeld, who managed to expose more hypocrisy in 2 minutes than The View has ignored in 2 decades.
So, Sunny, I bet you haven't been in a supermarket since COVID for about 3 years.
I haven't been in a supermarket since COVID. For about 3 years. That's when I discovered Instacart, and I give them a big tip because they don't always pay their people well, and it's so that's been an issue, I think, for the company. But man, you can get toiletries, you can get fire logs. You know those big Bounty towels you don't want to carry.
Those from Costco.
Somebody else goes.
Fire logs? She had to tell the audience that she tips big because even she knows she sounds insufferable. Hey, I'm an but at least I tip.
It all started like any typical Tuesday on The View, which means the opening felt like group therapy, with loud affirmations, constant back patting, and the usual declaration that they were once again saving democracy one misinformed opinion at a time. Sunny Hostin, who plays the role of legal expert, the way a teenager fumbles through Guitar Hero, enthusiastically but badly, was of course front and center. Her big insight, that everything bad is always someone else's fault, and facts are optional if you say things with enough passion.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sunny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sunny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sunny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe. Here's how she took the news.
If you've never watched The View, just imagine the comment section of a political Facebook page, only hosted by people who once skimmed a Wikipedia article about the Constitution and decided they were scholars. Sunny fits perfectly into that scene. She's the group's voice of reason. If your definition of reason includes screaming threat to democracy every time someone dares to disagree with her latte-fueled worldview.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, you know, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah. So how are you feeling, my friend?
I think it's actually pretty interesting that my husband and I have shared roots.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate that. And I think it's great for our children to know this information. I guess it's a fact of life that this is how some people made their living, on the backs of others.
Fact of life. Interesting change of tune. For more, we go to our chief Sunny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
But then karma arrived. Greg Gutfeld stepped in, and that's when the real show began. Greg isn't polished in the traditional sense. He's more like the sharp-tongued guest at a dinner party who says exactly what everyone else is thinking but won't say aloud. Apparently no one told Sunny that sarcasm is still legal in most states, because the moment Gutfeld started highlighting her long list of hypocrisies, she collapsed like a deck chair in a hurricane. First came Sunny's talent for demanding civil discourse. Despite recently labeling half the country a roving band of democracy-destroying goblins, to her, civil discourse only applies if you agree with her 100%. Otherwise, you're basically an accomplice to murder. That's Sunny's logic, a messy blend of courtroom drama and middle school lunchroom politics. But Greg wasn't finished. He turned into a one-man forensic accountant, pulling receipts like he was auditing her entire career. One moment, Sunny rails against family separations at the border. Fast forward, her preferred administration does the same thing, and suddenly it's all just complex policy nuances the rest of us could never understand. Hypocrisy? She practically stitched it on a pillow.
Oh, I'm gonna milk this till the end of time. You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm gonna go, slave owner! Kat, I just watched that. That's the second time I've watched that. She was tipped off beforehand, right? Because they had to tell her before, so she had time to regroup. They wouldn't just surprise. Really? Do you think? No?
I don't know. I feel like she could have maybe done better. Okay, here's the thing.
Greg laid it all out. Sunny's outrage works like a light switch. It's on when a conservative so much as sneezes, and off when a liberal stumbles face first into the Constitution. She's the type to demand investigations into the ethics of someone's tweets, while defending politicians who couldn't spell ethics even if you gave them the E and the T. And the best part? The audience at The View reacted like the loyal congregation they always are. Gutfeld could have held up a photo album of Sunny's contradictions, autographed by Sunny herself, and they still would have booed him for spreading hate. Naturally, Sunny did the only thing a modern TV personality knows by heart. She played the victim faster than you could say audience sympathy, with a trembling voice and the rehearsed tears of someone who's sat through media training more than once. She spun Gutfeld's criticism into a sweeping attack on all women, all minorities, and practically anyone in between. Because when the argument can't be won on reason, the battlefield expands until emotion is the only weapon left.
I think that women, white women in particular, want to protect the patriarchy here because it's to their benefit. Yeah. They want to make sure that their husbands do well. They want to make sure that their sons do well. They want to make sure that their children do well. And they want to make sure that they do well. Most of the women in some of these studies are married white women, and they do fall in line with what their husbands are doing.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions? Yeah. Like you said, it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there.
Sunny, who has spent years from her cushy ABC throne hurling vile labels at millions of Americans, suddenly wept because someone dared to point out that she contradicts herself more than a motivational speaker with commitment issues. It was emotional gymnastics so extreme it could win gold if Olympic judges scored on pure lack of self-awareness. And The View? They circled the wagons like cowboys in an old western, except instead of fighting off bandits, they were desperately shielding Sunny from the terrifying possibility of being fact-checked. Whoopi Goldberg even chimed in with a pep talk that basically boiled down to, remember, facts are just a social construct if you feel strongly enough about it. Meanwhile, producers reportedly scrambled behind the scenes, whispering about Sunny's emotional well-being, as though getting called out for hypocrisy on national TV isn't a routine Tuesday for any politician or public figure. You'd think she would be used to it by now, but no, this time was different.
Joy Behar gets racism. After all, she's been black on Halloween. Yeah. But Joy wasn't there on the show. Apparently Mondays are her days off when she feeds in the pasture. But that is convenient, right? It's like one of my aunts dies every time Brian Kilmeade wants to hang out. Maybe Joy needs a full day to read her hate mail, and that's just from the rest of the cast. So Scott had to deal with Sunny Hostin and her typical self-righteousness.
This was Greg Gutfeld daring to point out that the Emperor had no clothes, while the Emperor herself sobbed into a designer coffee mug. Social media, of course, erupted within minutes. Twitter was instantly flooded with memes. One brutal gem showed Sunny with the caption, "Strong opinions, weak spine." Another had her crying on The View under the tagline, "When you realize receipts don't lie." Even people who usually avoid politics began to notice, because when you whine endlessly about civility while trashing half the country, folks actually remember. Meanwhile, Gutfeld's segment exploded online. His sharp, sarcastic breakdown of Sunny's meltdown resonated with everyone sick of being gaslit by the same 3 recycled cable news talking points served up every week like lukewarm bathwater. It turned into a masterclass in showing that The View isn't real debate. It's basically a live-action Tumblr thread with a studio audience and better lighting. Not a clash of ideas, but a choreographed routine like synchronized swimming where everyone knows the moves ahead of time, and anyone daring to cannonball into the pool gets booed as if they committed violence.
But unlike this chick, we didn't think it was the best thing that could have happened to us. Although it did get Joy Behar to wear a mask. People, you make me sick. It's funny, her being named Joy is like me being named ugly.
What made the whole thing even sweeter was watching The View scramble to reframe the entire fiasco. Suddenly, this wasn't about Sunny's hypocrisy. No. This was about protecting women from public attacks and standing up to bullying. Apparently, pointing out contradictions now counts as a federal hate crime. In truth, The View is nothing more than a padded safe space for ideas that have never been tested by serious adult conversation. Sunny Hostin and her co-hosts aren't searching for debate. They're staging a daily self-esteem seminar dressed up as political commentary. The moment logic, consistency, or heaven forbid sarcasm walks through the door, they crumble like a dollar store umbrella in a hurricane. Sunny's meltdown wasn't shocking, it was inevitable. She's been stacking the tower of hypocrisy for years, brick by brick, contradiction by contradiction. Greg Gutfeld simply did the unthinkable. He sneezed, and the entire shaky structure collapsed in an instant.
Did you watch the whole thing or just the parts that I sent you?
I watched it. Obviously, just the parts that you said. Did I watch a whole episode of The View?
No woman can do that unless you're stupid. But
I have a job.
Here's the thing. How can they call themselves progressives when they keep saying that nothing has progressed? Then it's on them.
Right. I just wish I could have, would have watched if I could, would have been Joy Behar watching that.
Yes.
And being like, I totally made the right call. It was not an accident that they had him there on her day off when she was, presented herself as the, expert on systemic racism.
And of course, because no modern meltdown is complete without a rebrand, Sunny launched into a teary-eyed sermon about growth and being brave enough to be vulnerable. Translation, please forget that I was just caught playing Calvin ball with my own principles on live TV. It was almost impressive, really, watching The View twist a full-blown exposure of lies and double standards into a teachable moment about healing could have passed as the plot of a new Marvel movie. The Gaslighters Assemble. Meanwhile, Gutfeld just kept winning, not with rage or outrage, but with that same smug smirk that drives the perpetually offended absolutely insane. He knows the game, point out the Emperor's nakedness, and suddenly you're accused of attacking body positivity. Poor Sunny though, she's stuck in an endless loop now. Every time she tries to claw her way back to moral superiority, someone dredges up that little moment where she melted faster than butter in a microwave when confronted with her own words. At this point, she's become a living, breathing meme.
People have to wonder, where does Sunny Hostin get her opinions?
Yeah.
Like you said, and it's obviously from her husband. She has to tell her what to say on The View, because without it, she's got nothing up there. She's not very bright. But the problem with her is that she went full racist. She injected skin color into a fairly generic behavior seen in all spouses, regardless of skin color. People marry, they listen to each other, they have something in common with them, they share their political views. She just didn't want to upset her husband by saying her husband makes her do everything, and then she'd have to accuse him of being a racist. Because if he told her that this is what white women do, then he's a racist. You see?
An eternal example of what happens when emotional manipulation finally collides with real accountability. In a just world, The View would take this moment to reflect, to maybe, just maybe, bring on guests with different perspectives, encourage actual debate, and rediscover the lost art of talking like adults without reaching for a fainting couch every time someone disagrees. But let's be honest, the chances of The View embracing intellectual honesty are about the same as Sunny Hostin winning a Pulitzer Prize for political courage. Instead, what we can expect are episodes filled with emotional support llamas, guided breathing exercises, and a 3-part special titled Why Feelings Are More Important Than Facts. And Sunny, she'll keep climbing up to her imaginary high ground, confusing altitude for morality, delivering polished speeches about how truth matters, while avoiding anything resembling actual truth like it's radioactive. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld will keep doing what he does best, reminding America that the Emperor isn't just naked, he's demanding a standing ovation for his wardrobe.
More time to talk. And I thought Will Smith wouldn't let a black man finish. If her IQ was half as high as her smugness, she'd be Einstein. And later it got weird after Whoopi Goldberg asked a question and Sunny chimed in. Again.
If nothing else, Sunny's meltdown handed us a gift, a perfectly televised reminder that hypocrisy eventually devours itself. You can only deceive yourself and your audience for so long before someone, somewhere, finally points and laughs. And oh, did people laugh. In the end, Sunny Hostin's breakdown wasn't just about being exposed, and it wasn't even strictly about politics. It was about the unavoidable collision between fragile egos, manufactured outrage, and the cold, unflinching wall of reality. The View spun the wheel, and this time, it landed squarely on humiliation.